You don't control what happens to you, but you do control what it does to your soul. This is the foundation of the philosophy you are about to discover. Let me ask you something. Do you live at the mercy of chaos, constantly reacting to problems and emotions? Or do you live like a rock in the middle of a storm, steady, grounded, and unshakable? Most people believe that peace comes from controlling life, but real peace begins when you learn to control yourself. Today you will discover why Epictetus, yes, a former Roman slave, became one of the greatest teachers of inner freedom in history, and how his philosophy can radically, brutally, and beautifully transform your way of living. But before we begin, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and activate the bell so you won't miss any future content that could truly impact your life. Now, let's go back to the video. Imagine being born into slavery. Imagine having your body chained, your rights erased, your voice ignored, and your future decided by someone else. And yet, imagine finding a sense of inner peace so strong that no one, not even your master, could take it away. This is not fiction. This was the life of Epictetus. He owned nothing, he controlled nothing, but he mastered everything that truly mattered: his mind, his emotions, his perceptions, and his decisions. Epictetus did not leave behind an autobiography, and in fact, much of what we know about his teachings was recorded by one of his students. But what he did leave is far more precious than a simple life story. He left his system of living, a roadmap to inner freedom that has survived thousands of years and continues to guide millions of people across the world. What you are going to hear today is not a list of motivational quotes, nor is it a shallow self-help trick. It is a spiritual discipline. It is a way of living with strength, serenity, clarity, and purpose. When Epictetus says, "Don't seek for things to happen as you wish them to happen as they happen, and you will have peace," he is not saying you should stop caring about your goals or dreams. He is teaching you how to stop suffering unnecessarily. He is showing you how to stop expecting the world to bend to your desires, and instead learn to bend yourself to the reality that life presents. Epictetus's entire philosophy is built on one fundamental distinction, a concept so simple yet so powerful that it can change your entire perspective on life. He calls it the Great Divide, the separation between what is up to us and what is not. This distinction is the heart of Stoic philosophy. So, what is up to us? Our opinions, our judgments, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, our choices, our actions. In other words, everything that originates within our own mind and character. And what is not up to us? The past, the future, the weather, politics, the economy, the actions, words, or decisions of other people, our bodies getting sick or aging, natural events, accidents. Almost everything outside of our thoughts and actions lies beyond our control. Yet most people live as if the opposite were true. They behave as though the outside world is something they should manage, organize, and bend to their liking. They try to control what others think, what others do, what they say, how they behave, and how they respond. They try to control outcomes, circumstances, and everything external. And because of this, they live frustrated, angry, stressed, disappointed, and emotionally unstable. Real freedom doesn't begin when you control life. It begins the moment you stop trying to control what cannot be controlled
and start training yourself instead. Think about this for a moment. How much energy in your life is wasted on trying to change people who don't want to change? How much frustration comes from expecting people to behave exactly the way you want? How many times have you attached your happiness to something external, like a compliment, a result, a relationship, or a specific outcome, only to feel hurt when things didn't go your way? Epictetus teaches that suffering begins when we attach our peace to things we don't control. The moment you understand, deeply and honestly, that not everything depends on you, you unlock the gates to real emotional freedom. Let's take a simple example. Suppose you decide to start a new diet, or go to the gym, or study more, but your parents, spouse, or friends don't agree. Maybe they mock your efforts, discourage you, or try to convince you to quit. You get frustrated. You feel like you're failing because they aren't changing. But Epictetus would say, you haven't failed at all. They are masters of their own decisions. You cannot control their thoughts or actions. What you can control is your own response. And ironically, when you stop trying to change others and start changing yourself, your example often inspires more transformation than your words ever could. Epictetus teaches 3 main disciplines that every person should master if they want to achieve inner freedom. The first discipline is the discipline of perception. According to him, it is not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. Think about how powerful this idea is. A financial loss is neutral. An insult is neutral. A rejection is neutral. Even illness or misfortune is neutral. What creates suffering is not the event, but the story we tell ourselves about the event. Our interpretation is what hurts us, not the thing itself. Epictetus invites us to monitor our thoughts like a warrior watching the movements of an enemy. He asks us to question our assumptions, challenge our automatic reactions, and recognize how distortions in our perception often create unnecessary pain.
The second discipline is the discipline of action. But more specifically, Epictetus teaches a concept called amor fati, love of fate. To most people, this sounds strange. Why should we love things we don't want? But Epictetus explains this beautifully. You can fight reality for the rest of your life, or you can learn to align yourself with it. You can resist the present moment or flow with it. You can reject what is happening or welcome it with dignity. This doesn't mean you give up on self-improvement or goals. It means you stop arguing with life. It means you stop demanding that things should be different right now. It means you learn to accept events as they are, not as you wish they were. When you do this, you no longer suffer twice. You no longer fight battles that don't exist. You conserve emotional energy and become stronger. The third discipline is the discipline of will, the inner strength to want what happens instead of resisting it. Modern society trains us to control everything: outcomes, appearances, timelines, and expectations. But Epictetus trains us to surrender, not as weakness, but as wisdom. He teaches that discipline is not about waking up early or following routines. True discipline is resisting your impulses, controlling your reactions, and cultivating inner silence even when the world is screaming around you. When you master your inner world, the outer world loses its power over you. Many people believe these ideas are just ancient philosophical thoughts, but what Epictetus taught nearly 2,000 years ago is now backed by some of the most solid discoveries in neuroscience and psychology. Let's start with the discipline of perception. When Epictetus says that events themselves don't disturb us, but our interpretation of them does, he is unknowingly describing the foundation of cognitive restructuring, a core technique in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. CBT is one of the most scientifically validated treatments for anxiety, depression, and stress. Aaron Beck, the father of CBT, demonstrated in 1976 that distorted automatic thoughts are the primary source of emotional suffering. Change the thought, and the emotional response changes. Change the lens, and the world changes. Next, the practice of amor fati, loving fate, is supported by scientific concepts like radical acceptance and mindfulness. Studies show that fully accepting the present moment reduces psychological distress and increases emotional stability, even when the situation is difficult. Research conducted by Hayes and colleagues in 2006 found that people who practice acceptance rather than avoidance experience less emotional reactivity and greater well-being. In other words, when you stop fighting reality, you grow calmer and stronger. You learn how to adapt instead of break. Finally, the discipline of will, training yourself to want what happens, is deeply connected to the concept of an internal locus of control in psychology. This refers to the belief that you are responsible for your responses, even if you cannot control external events. Studies from Rotter in 1966 and Leftcourt in 1976 showed that people with a strong internal locus of control are more resilient, disciplined, focused, and emotionally stable. They perform better under pressure, recover faster from setbacks, and experience less depression. Epictetus didn't call this psychology, he called it inner freedom. Stoic wisdom is not magic. It is neuroscience wrapped in philosophy. And when you combine thousands of years of practical human wisdom with decades of scientific insight, you don't just understand life, you learn how to live it. Two people can live the same life, face the same problems, wake up in the same circumstances, and yet have completely different experiences. One becomes a slave to the world, constantly reacting to everything. The other becomes a master of himself, responding with clarity and purpose. What separates them? The philosophy that lives inside them. Ryan Holiday, one of the leading voices of modern Stoicism, frequently quotes Epictetus when he says, "You don't control what happens, but you always control how you respond." Jordan Peterson echoes this idea with his famous statement, "Life is suffering, but what you do about it defines who you are." Stoic wisdom is alive, powerful, and relevant. But to hear it, you must slow down. You must step out of noise. You must watch your own mind with honesty. The art of living is not about luxury, fame, success, or pleasure. It is about consistency. It is about becoming unshakable when the world seems to fall apart. Epictetus doesn't ask you to be emotionless or numb. He asks you to be a mountain, firm, alive, rooted, and at peace with both the sky and the storm. If this video touched something in you, I encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. But more importantly, take one sentence from Epictetus, any sentence, and write it down. Meditate on it, apply it. Wisdom is useless if it stays in theory. No man is free until he masters himself.